The 80s had delivered a number of slashers and creature flicks, so now times were changing, and people wanted something new. The new 90s were infamous for experimental horror. Amidst hits and hidden gems, we got some radical films that would not only define this new era, but also change the fate of cinema in the next couple of decades. Jack Finney's The Body Snatchers was one such novel that deserves special mention. It was subsequently adapted on screen numerous times. And in today's video, we'll talk about what happened to the Body Snatchers film from 1993. So, without much ado, let's begin. Inspiration. Jack Finney was an American writer of sci-fi, horror, and thrillers, such as Assault on a Queen and Time and Again. So when his novel The Body Snatchers came out in 1955, it was quite the rage. The very next year, it was adapted in black and white in the film noir style, starring Kevin McCarthy and Dana Winter. Again in 1978, the film would be redone. Both the versions were critical and financial successes, which led to a third version in 1993. But for the longest time, this one ended up being shuffled away by the distributor before finally making it to the big screen. While the older versions had their own charms, the 1993 version was bustling with big names in the credits section. Larry Cohen, Dennis Paoli, and Stuart Gordon. Gordon was originally meant to direct the film, but Ferrara was roped in, and we aren't complaining. On top of that, Ferrara's filmography meant that it promised controversy. He'd already earned a big name with his background in gritty urban dramas, with provocative flicks like The Driller Killer, Miss 45, King of New York, and Bad Lieutenant. His style heavily influenced this film, marking his first big budget in science fiction project. Naturally, Body Snatchers had been put through the ringer, and it was destined for greatness. Body Snatchers, 1993. The plot. So the story begins like this. Marty Malone is your average next-door teenager living an ordinary life. Her father, Steve, is an agent at the Environmental Protection Agency, and he's just remarried this woman named Carol. Marty also had a 10-year-old stepbrother named Andy. They all live together with the appearance of a happy family, but deep in her heart, Marty cannot really connect to her new family. Now, Steve gets a new project at a remote military base in Alabama. People here had broken into mass hysteria, and it was speculated that some kind of ecological contamination due to military activities may have triggered these people's panic. Steve is assigned to investigate the issue on behalf of his organization. As they move to this new place, the family stops at a gas station where a military personnel threatens Marty with a knife in the restroom. Marty is obviously terrified, and this guy notices the fear in her eyes. Something about her showing an emotional response calms him, and he lets her go. The serviceman also warns her that they are everywhere, and they get you when you sleep. I mean, what just happened? Who's he talking about? All these questions build up the suspense. But for now, Marty is just glad that she could escape this guy who had probably gone nuts. By the time she rushed to tell her father about this oddly creepy incident, the wild-eyed serviceman was nowhere to be seen. Anyway, the family moves into their new home, and eventually Marty even makes new friends. I mean, she already feels pretty estranged from her family, so she tries hard to fit into these changing circumstances. The base commander's daughter, Jen, becomes her new confidant. Jen is this really cool punk chick who would make everything better for Marty, at least for now. Marty also meets this handsome young man, this dashing helicopter pilot named Tim Young. Tim had basically brought home Andy when the kid had run away from his first day at daycare. Naturally, Marty and Tim are kind of into each other, and things finally begin to seem nice for Marty. She even goes to a bar with Jen, where she meets Tim. Marty also comes across the serviceman from the gas station, but the dude puts on an expressionless face, denies any association with her, and tells Tim to take her home. Now that's weird. As for Steve, he examines the soil samples extensively, and a medical officer named Major Collins asks him about narcophobia, that is, the fear of falling asleep. Collins suspects that the inhabitants at the base suffer from narcophobia as a possible response to the toxicity of the environment. Steve doesn't take this too seriously and thinks that a psychological explanation is more likely, but he can't brush it off for too long. He discovers mutant plants and finds that the environment has reached extreme levels of toxicity. Something stranger happens at night. When Andy tries to approach his mom, he literally watches her crumble to dust. A soulless, naked body double emerges from the closet, and Andy is all confused. But no one would believe the 10-year-old's story that his real mother is dead, and the woman pretending to be Carol is an imposter. The next day, Steve watches an accident in front of his eyes. While he and his fellow mates were in hazmat suits, he witnesses a soldier getting an injury that made no sense and raises his suspicions. General Pratt is also emotionless when a soldier reports this incident to him, so Steve, being the curious man he is, took a sample from the injured guy's suit and sent it for examination. Things grow creepier that night as Marty faces off a duplicate emerging from the giant pods. She had fallen asleep during a bath, but she startled out of her sleep and ripped off the tendrils from the imposter's face. Something similar happens with with Steve as well. Carol, the body double of Carol, lured Steve into sleep as she massaged his back. Steve too would have been replaced by a body double had it not been for Marty, who came just in time to stall the process. Carol then convinces Steve that the takeover is actually a good thing because it would bring an end to all the chaos that had unfurled around them. She also says that they don't really have anywhere else to go because the base wasn't an isolated event. It's happening everywhere, and there are no two ways about it. Steve is not just shocked, he is really disappointed and is on the verge of giving in, but that's his kids to step in. Marty and Andy literally drag him out the door, enraging Carol, who now emits a shrill cry. It marks her call to the other pod people that there's a human around. The duplicates swarm in massive numbers, so naturally the remaining humans, including Tim, have to run from his deadly mutant chase. Steve hides Marty and Andy in a warehouse and rushes into Major Collins' office, where the latter is absolutely hysterical. Collins believes that it's too late to run. They can't really do anything, so all they can do and should do is fight. He even pops a punch of pills that save him from falling asleep. That's when a group of pod people, led by General Platt, gang up on them. Steve manages to hide, and the gang tells the Major how conformity takes precedence over individuality when it comes to solving the problems of the world. Unable to bear this pressure, the Major shoots himself. He'd rather die than live in such a hellish world. Steve then returns to take his children away. He drives aimlessly throughout the place, where loudspeakers blurt out instructions for spreading the invasion by carrying out pods and trucks. Marty soon realizes that this man is not her father, so she tries to get out of the car with her brother. Tim too arrives, having escaped from his old friends who had turned into duplicates and had attempted to turn him into their likeness. Marty then grabs Tim's gun and shoots Steve, whose body shrinks into a mass of seething, bloody goo. Tim then gains control over a helicopter gunship, but Marty and Andy fall prey to the pod people. They're sedated and taken to the base infirmary, where humans are systematically duplicated by the pods. The real question is, will they meet the fates of their fellow humans? But don't worry, our dashing pilot saves Marty just in time. By then, Marty's duplicate had actually tried to seduce Tim with her naked body, but he ripped off the tendrils, killing the body double. The situation is really tricky, and the couple escaped the building cosplay as pod people until they reach Tim's helicopter to flee the place. But Jen, who's now a duplicate, spots the duo. Suspecting that Marty might still be a human, she tells her that Andy was looking for Marty. Now, Marty is obviously human, and she can't help but show emotions at the thought of her brother being alive. Shitty move, but what could she even do? Jen lets out her classic mechanical scream, which alerts other pod people. Chased by these invaders, Tim and Marty rush to the helicopter, where Andy runs up to them at the very last minute. The helicopter takes off, and Andy turns out to be a duplicate. He attacks them and tries to sabotage the escape attempt. It's the survival of the fittest, and emotions can cost you your life. So, Marty has no choice but to stiffen her heart and throw the imposter out of the helicopter. Pod Andy lets out a deafening scream before crashing. Tim eventually fires the helicopter's rockets and destroys trucks filled with pods. The ending actually fades into a meta-narrative, where Marty talks about the tragic loss of humanity. The duo travels to another base, and Marty's stepmom's words ring in her ears. Where you gonna go? Where you gonna run? Where you gonna hide? Nowhere, because there's no one like you left. Standout scenes and performances. The film makes tangential commentaries on race, the decline of American exceptionalism, and the unease about adults try to run the world and just accept it. To me, the film is all about losing one's sense of identity as humans turn to mere dust and body doubles take over. It makes us wonder if conformity is really the key to calming the chaos. On one hand, everything will be heterogeneous, people will be predictable, and the military will be able to control the inhabitants efficiently. On the other hand, it is these human moments and the flickers of the heart that keep us alive, that make us who we are. Marty has never really connected to her family or her half-brother, and yet she can't help but feel protective of Andy. When Pa Jen tells her that he's alive, her heart reaches out to him. Her face betrays the cold countenance she had been putting on, and in that moment, she's truly human. What's really creepy is that the world is on the brink of turning into a globe of emotionless creatures, unfeeling and unrelenting. All that we knew of human life and human happiness would disappear in a poof. It's the sheer helplessness that even the military, the highest-ranking personnel in charge, can't do anything about this terrible mess. So it kind of makes sense why the inhabitants would lose sleep over this threat. But it's not just the look of Body Snatchers that makes it memorable. The entire cast really carries this film. One standout is Riley Murphy, whose growing paranoia as he starts noticing everyone acting exactly the same way adds a ton of tension to the story. Gabrielle Anwar also delivers a solid performance as Marty. Marty, especially in that scene where she's playing a drinking game of I've Never. You can literally feel the unease in the room. Then there's this tense moment where a group of pod people is confronted head-on in a final stand. It's one of those scenes that stays with you long after. And honestly, Meg Tilly steals the show with her cold, unsettling monologue as Pod Carol, trying to convince Steve to just give up and join them. The way she delivers those lines about how resistance is pointless. Absolute chills. It's one of the eeriest moments in 90s horror. Hands down. Surprisingly, the film actually got a lot of love from critics too. It even made it to the 1993 Cannes Film Festival. Big names like Roger Ebert praised it for its sharp social commentary and psychological tension. He even went as far as to say it's better than the earlier versions. His exact words were, as sheer movie making, it's skilled and knowing and deserves the highest praise you can give a horror film. It works. Pretty awesome, right? Legacy. The real question is, has Body Snatchers aged well? Despite mixed reviews from fans and critics, the film did pretty well, gaining a cult following in the process. Today, it's considered to be a hidden horror gem that demands to be seen time and again. There are no flashy green monsters or aliens from outer space, and yet the creatures, if they can at all be called creatures in the first place, scare the living shit out of the viewers. There's no superhero saving the day and ending the feat on a happy note. In fact, Marty's perspective as a young woman trying to save her family is quite unique. In the end, things look pretty bleak, as the world Marty had left behind before coming to the military base no longer exists. It's an unconventional ending, one that's not supposed to sit well with the audience, but that's what filters out real fans of sci-fi horror from the rest. Marvelous verdict. As staples from the 90s, the entire horror genre did pretty well. Films like Body Snatchers may not be the jewels in the crown, but they're what give form to the crown. They're innovative, fun, and full of terror. Ferrara did not just deliver a spine-tingling horror flick. He also used science in a way that makes the horror feel real. Today, when the environment is pumped with toxic materials, we're forced to revisit the potential of these chemicals in altering existing life forms. All it takes is a few mutations, and the resulting horror is better left unimagined. As pods engulf the humans in the film, as tendrils cover up the entirety of the individual, as humans go into a vegetative state emotionally, we're left to wonder if all this is really just fantasy.